This happened a while back when I was 15 years old. I just discovered the rebellious act of sneaking out. This was probably my 4th or 5th time doing so, I believe. This one night, I decided to go and meet up with my boyfriend. At this point in time, we weren't together yet, but we really knew we liked each other. You know how that sort of thing goes. When you're with someone you like, you tend not to really pay attention to what's going on around you. The night started out pretty fine, actually. We were both having a very good time. I don't remember exactly what we were talking about, because we had both gotten pretty damn high. I do remember what happened, though. We'd met up and snuck to this elementary school that had a decent-sized field, with some hills and trees toward the end of it. From where we were sitting, we had a very clear view of the school, as well as the basketball court. The school was illuminated from the side lights, so we could easily see anyone walking by. It wasn't easy for people to see us laying there, though. To our left was a little pavement path that led to a townhouse complex. So here we are, sitting at the edge of this field, just gazing out at the stars and talking about random shit together, when we started to hear the crunch of gravel coming from the school. Because we were both high and paranoid, we immediately turned our attention to the illuminated basketball court. We watched as a man walked by with his bike and didn't seem to notice us. After he passed by, we almost instantly forgot about it and resumed talking, laughing, and being a bit loud. Perhaps 10 minutes later, though, we hear that same crunch of gravel go by. We go silent immediately and look out toward the school. Once again, it was that same guy. This time, though, when he reached the courts, he didn't keep on walking. He stopped at the edge of the field we were sitting on and stared out at it for maybe a minute or so. It looked like he was searching for us. We were a little bit creeped out at this point, so we started to quietly pack up our things to leave. All of a sudden, the man began to walk towards us. As soon as he'd stepped out onto the field, it became so much more difficult to see him. The light from the school couldn't reach that area. We took this as our cue to get the hell out of there. The only way to leave without being extremely visible was to take the path into the townhouses. We jumped up and tried our best to be quiet. We walked through the pitch black path that led to the townhouse complex. We were not sober, by the way, so we were extra freaked out. I kept on checking behind us constantly. For some reason, I couldn't shake the feeling something bad was going to happen. We finally reached the end of that pitch black path and made it to the decently lit complex. We started to ease up a little bit and began trying to find our way to the main exit. That was the closest way out besides the way we'd come in. As we were walking throughout the complex, we started to relax and talk a bit more. Once we turned the corner to leave, though, just as we were about to reach the exit, we saw the same man with his bike waiting there for us at the exit. We stopped for maybe 2 seconds. The man dropped his bike on the ground and started to sprint directly at us. I muttered a quick, "Oh shit!" My boyfriend and I began sprinting as fast as we could away from this guy. We turned down random corners and down little back alleys, not once checking behind us. I don't know when or where we lost him, but we became very tired. We had to stop and hide in some bushes. We noticed after a while that there was no man in sight anymore. Still though, we stayed in that same position for about 20 more minutes, just trying to calm down. At this point, we had both pretty much sobered up, so we decided to try and leave once again. We began walking through the complex once more. When we made our way back to the main entrance, we both saw the man's bike was now gone. We were unsettled by this. We had no clue where the guy could be, or when he was going to just randomly appear again. Lucky for both of us though, we made it home safe and sound that night. I'll never forget the feeling though, of my heart sinking when we saw that guy blocking our way out. By far one of the creepiest things I've ever experienced. So this happened to me in 2009. I was 22 at the time, but I'm very short and small and can oftentimes be mistaken for a young teenager. I had just had a driving lesson, and while normally my instructor would drop me off in front of my home at the end, That day he had somewhere to be straight after, so he dropped me off at a nearby bus stop instead. My apartment block was about 500 meters away, at the end of a very long stretch of quiet road. It was an area that was still being built up at the time, so all there really was a couple of abandoned old houses to the left and right, my apartment block at the very end, and that's pretty much it. It was rare to ever see cars going there that weren't just going straight to the apartment block, because really there was nothing there to go to. Maybe a clinic a couple of streets away, so you would occasionally get someone who was lost looking for directions to that place. It was around 8 p.m., and it had just gotten dark outside. The street was barely lit. Still though, it only took a few minutes to get from the bus stop to my house, so I really didn't think that much of it. That was until a car drove past me, but then started backing up in the middle of the street until it was driving slowly right beside me. I looked over and could see a woman was driving. There was a man in the passenger seat. I sort of slowed down, thinking they were going to ask me for directions to the clinic. The woman instead asked this: "Do you live here?" Now I was thinking they definitely wanted directions. I stopped to help them, but then she said, "It looks like you're lost. We're the police. We're gonna take you home now." Mind you, this was a totally normal vehicle. These people weren't in uniform or looking in any way official. I was incredulous. I was literally stunned. All I could say was something like, "You're taking the piss." Immediately, I was thinking these people must have mistaken me for a 10-year-old or something and were trying to kidnap me. The woman was getting very agitated. She kept on telling me, "You have to respect the police. Get in the car right now." I was shocked. I was angry. At this point, the car stopped. I saw the woman moving to open the door. I burst into the fastest sprint of my life while fumbling with my phone to call my mom. I screamed at her to buzz me in because I was in danger. My dad ran out of the house to meet me and started to look for them immediately after, but the car was already nowhere in the area. He informed the police, but nothing ever came of it. Years ago, I lived in a condo with just my 2 dogs, Smokey and the Bandit, brother and sister from the same litter I'd gotten as puppies. For reference, their mother was a Sheltie, Smokey's father was a German Shepherd, and Bandit's was a Husky. They were both good-sized with long, thick coats, which made them look a lot bigger than they actually were. Personality-wise, though, they were both big babies who loved people and attention, and would happily lick you to death if given the chance. One night, I got home late, around 2:30 in the morning. I took them out for a quick run and a piss, something I had done many times before. I lived in the back side of the condo on the ground level. The backyard was basically a huge park-like setting, divided into intersecting pathways, kind of like a square with 4 quadrants. That was surrounded by other condos and houses. The area in front of mine was a big field with a pathway about halfway through, running just parallel to the condo. To the left of that was an area around the same size, divided between a large playground area and a big forest with a pathway running through it. I headed straight out of my condo and across the pathway that divided that big open field. That was when I noticed someone, a tall, skinny man, dressed all in black, whistling while walking along the path I had just crossed over. As I ran with my dogs, I noticed the whistling had suddenly stopped. I looked back over my shoulder, only to see the man had diverted off the path as soon as I was in front of him and was now walking in a direct line towards me. Immediately, I thought to myself, "Oh shit, this can't be good." I took a hard left and ran to the playground area. It was well lit, but there were also big hills I assume were leftover dirt from construction or something. I ran around that hill into the dark, where I thought he wouldn't be able to see me. I stayed there in the dark for a minute, trying to formulate a plan. Luckily, I knew the area very well, having spent hours walking everywhere with the dogs. I snuck towards the forested area, creeping towards the trees to where the path ran through, circling back around towards my condo. I kept close to the shadows while praying that I had lost him. The forested area ended basically where the backyard of my condo began. Still hidden in the darkness, I looked around the open area ahead. I couldn't see anyone. I made a break for it and started running out of the forest like hell. Up to this point, it was just like any other walk for my dogs, who'd happily galloped alongside me the entire time, seemingly unaware of any danger. As soon as I left the protection of the forest, though, I saw that fucker jump out of waiting from a nearby group of bushes. I had a good head start on him, thankfully, but I didn't know how fast this guy was. I kept on running. What happened next still amazes me to this day. As I was running, the dog still at my side. Smokey all of a sudden stopped dead in her tracks, turned around and assumed a snarling stance. She began to growl at the man, which stopped him dead in his tracks. Bandit stuck right by my side like glue until we got to my patio. I turned around and looked back, almost laughing at that fucker. Smokey was standing her ground in full-on guard dog mode, while the man was standing there looking at her, hands up in surrender. I called Smokey to come back to me. She backed away slowly, barking and growling at the man, until she decided it was finally good. She turned around and ran right back to me. I kept my eyes on that guy the entire time. He never moved until the dogs went back inside, at which point I followed them soon after. I immediately called 911, and within minutes the entire backyard area was swarming with cops. The cop who interviewed me said there had been numerous reports of sexual assaults in that area, and they figured it was all that same guy. Unfortunately, other than tall, skinny, and wearing all black, I had zero info on what the man looked like. I don't know if they ever caught him or anything more on it really. When everyone was gone, I had a good long cuddle with my wonder dogs, complete with them licking away my tears. After the adrenaline and everything wore off, the gravity of what could have happened and how damn lucky I was finally hit me. I got off work at around 10 p.m. and headed home. I lived alone and always made sure my front door was locked before I left. When I arrived home, though, I found the door was now unlocked. I knew for a fact I had locked up tight when I left, because like I stated, I always double check. I have severe OCD and would not have forgotten to do so. I was too obsessed with my routine to ever forget. I was thoroughly unsettled by this. Immediately, I retrieved my pistol from the drawer right next to my front door. I set down my bag of fast food and looked around the dark living room, fumbling for the light switch. Once the light flicked on, to my utter horror, my apartment was in complete disarray. Paperwork thrown all over the floor that had been put away in my office. My social security card lying out in the open, and my birth certificate too. I quickly made my way to my office. Once I entered the room, I found all the drawers were open. My computer had been turned on, and it was at the lock screen, as if someone had been trying to log into it. I checked the rest of my apartment, but I didn't find anyone there. I put my gun back and immediately phoned the police. They arrived fairly quickly and took a report of the break-in. They asked me if I had any enemies, or if I'd made anyone mad recently. I responded that I hadn't. No such thing had occurred. And furthermore, I'm not the type of person that quarrels often with people. Needless to say, I was quite dumbstruck as to what I'd stumbled home to. I cleaned up the mess and attempted to go to sleep, but I tossed and turned most of the night, laying with my gun under my pillow. I'd like to add that I was already a somewhat paranoid person, so the whole thing naturally freaked me out. The next day I had off, so I left to go hiking with my girlfriend. I left around 9 a.m. and stopped by the Starbucks right next to my apartment. While I sat in the busy drive-thru line, I looked up, only to notice a man staring at me from across the street on the same side as my apartment complex. The strangest thing about looking at this man was, though, just how much of a resemblance to me he bared. The guy had done up his hair the exact same way as me. He was about the same height and weight, too. He even wore the same glasses and looked to be about the same age as well. He didn't have any expression on his face, just stood there still as a statue staring at me. It was my turn to grab my order, so I grabbed my stuff and when I went to pull out of the drive-thru, the man was now gone. The day went on as planned, and my girlfriend and I had a very great day together. I told her about the incident at my apartment previously, and the weird man who looked just like me. She joked that perhaps my doppelganger had broken into my apartment or something. After I parted ways with my girlfriend and made my way home, I was a little bit nervous to return there, fearing that whoever had broken in before might have returned. Whatever they had been there for that night, they seemed to be looking for something in particular. I arrived at my apartment and made my way back to my unit. I lived upstairs, and as I approached those stairs to my front door, I could hear someone moving around upstairs. I was a good distance from the stairwell at this point and was alarmed. I didn't have any neighbors that lived upstairs, so no one should have been up there. I stopped to see who it was, and to my shock, it was none other than that same man I'd seen earlier that morning. He walked fairly quickly, and it looked like he was trying to be as quiet as possible. I shouted at the man to stop, but as soon as he heard me, he took off running. He hopped the fence that separated the complex from a large field and disappeared into the night. I ran upstairs to my apartment and tried the doorknob, once again unlocked. I went inside and was horrified. All over the walls of my living room were pictures of me and my girlfriend from that day. Pictures that looked as if they'd been taken right from the tree line next to the trail she and I were on. I once again called the police. They came and searched the apartment, as well as the entire complex. I told them about the man I'd seen running into the field. When they searched it, they returned with a pair of eyeglasses and a wig. The police took the items they found into evidence and opened up a case. They stationed 2 cars outside my apartment and informed the manager about what was going on. It's been almost a week since this started, and nothing else had happened since. No more random break-ins or creepy photos of my girlfriend and I. To be fair though, I'd been staying with a coworker of mine until things died down. I have no idea why whoever this is targeting me. Based on the items the police found in the field, my guess is this person is trying to pretend to be me for some odd reason. I don't know what that means. I have 2 Australian Shepherds. One is my personal dog and the other is a foster dog. Both are roughly around 60 pounds. I took them on a walk today at a local wilderness area that consists of about 50 miles of trails in total. I'd been there many times with my dogs and never had any problems. Anyways, we're walking down the trail and they did bark at the few people we saw. Every time I saw someone, we'd step to the side off the trail and let them pass me by. I'd apologize to them, the person would smile and keep on walking, and we'd all carry on with our merry days. So when I see this one guy approaching and the dogs go into alert mode, we stepped off the path so he could pass us by. The man instead walked up to us and then stopped in place. "Oh, I don't think your dogs like me." I told him they were just nervous around everyone. I apologized for them being so loud. At this point, I was barely able to hold them by their harnesses, so they were super close to me. They were going absolutely crazy. They were angry even. I know it was not great behavior, but nonetheless. The man began to whisper, "I'm sorry they don't like me. I'm so sorry." At this point, I was weirded out. He'd not broken eye contact with me or blinked at all, and seemed rather unfazed by the dogs all said. I again told him it was not his fault. I told the dogs to go with me and began to guide them away. The man told me he was going to keep moseying on up the trail. I said all right and told him to have a good day, and we walked off in opposite directions. I thought it was a very strange interaction, but hey, we can all be a little bit weird at times. I tried not to think too much of it. About 2 minutes later though, I heard the man suddenly call out from behind me, and I turned around to see him quickly approaching. "Hey, I really want to be friends with your dogs. I don't want to leave them on bad terms. I want to make some new friends." He walked right up. If I came upon nervous dogs, I'd always leave them alone, or if I did try to make friends, I'd squat down, talk gently to them, extend a hand. He never did this, though. He never even looked at the dogs, because he was staring at me without blinking once the entire time. This time, the dogs went absolutely nuts again. I didn't grab their harnesses though. I let them have the full length of the leash to put some distance between me and this man. The man was going insane, shouting now how he just wanted to be friends. I told him I didn't think that was going to happen. He tried to approach still, but the dogs were having none of that. He began to whisper to himself, "I'm sorry, I don't think they're going to be friends with me." Again, he was not even looking at them though. He was just staring at me unblinking. I told him to go away. He finally turned around and left, and I called my sister for the remainder of the walk. It was so strange. I guess I don't know for a fact that that man had bad intentions, but I'm sure glad that my dogs were there and made it abundantly clear he was not going to follow me anymore.